Welcome to Asian Book Club, where we highlight Asian and Asian American authors. We are your hosts,
Jamae and Sabangan.
and I'm Stephen Park. And today we bring you Read 1 of The Holiday Switch by Tiff Marcello. Within this read, we've seen some of the goings on in this world that's created by the author, and we follow this character named Lila. But we also get to see a part of her world, one of which includes something that her parents do, and it's something revolving around Christmas. For us, we do celebrate Christmas.
Mhm.
Jamae and I still call it Christmas. We don't think that that should discount any other holidays that are celebrated in December, January, whenever you celebrate your holidays. But this is just kind of what we call it.
Right,
So,
it's our winter holiday.
right. So if we call it Christmas instead of holidays, the more than likely reason is just because that's what we tend to call it amongst ourselves.
Hmm.
So for us, when we're celebrating Christmas and the gift giving around Christmas, we do something very similar to what Lila's parents do.
Yeah, we limit how much we spend on the Christmas gifts we give each other.
Right, and it's something we came up pretty early in our relationship. Nowadays, with the amount of things that we can purchase, the amount of stuff that's so readily available, it doesn't seem as much of a big deal to get something that's already needed by somebody.
But by needed, you mean like household items?
Household items, things for work, even
Hmm,
clothes, just the things that most people would, and I say this with privilege, but the thing that most people would be able to get themselves on a more normal basis.
fair.
So, because of that, we came up with a limit. I think it started at $20, and then during the first gift giving time, it crept up very quickly to like $50.
Right, I think we started at 20, but then once we started figuring out what gifts we wanted to give each other, it was like, well, how about 50?
And it's a soft cap. I think if one of us goes over 50, we're not like angry or upset, but it's much more the concept of try not to get something that's just expensive,
Mm-hmm.
but give something that's thoughtful, something that you hear, or something that reminds you of the other person. And so it's a journey where you're seeking for an item that may not necessarily be of massive financial value,
Mm-hmm.
but it's much more of an intrinsic or an emotional value.
Right, less extravagance and more intimacy.
Yeah, and it seems like that was kind of the basis of what Lila's parents did. They were doing this at a time when their needs were a little bit more tight.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, that was kind of based around the pandemic period where our financial security is a little in the air. And
Right.
it definitely brought out a different side to what gifts meant. And I've talked to several different people about this, and I still recommend this to people. I think we live in a world where there's a lot of availability of things. You can also create or craft. Like, there's a number of different variations in which a gift can be for someone
Mm-hmm.
rather than being something that has to be extravagant or expensive.
Right.
How did you feel when we first started doing this?
I felt like it was a very thoughtful thing to do. Like in other relationships, I'm the one who caps the price. But when we cap the price together, I feel like we're challenging each other while also being generous in a different way.
Yeah. So if y'all aren't sure what you're gonna do for holiday presents yet, if you haven't gone out and sought it out already, I would say give yourself a little bit of a challenge. It's not gonna work for everybody. Some of the other things that I've seen people do is I have a friend that comes from a family of three plus the two parents,
Hmm.
and they do a secret Santa amongst the family. That way they're not giving gifts for everybody.
Hmm.
So there are always options beyond just trying to get expensive gifts or trying to get a ton of gifts. So come up with something creative, especially nowadays when the physical items are so massive and abundant that we're creating a lot of trash and waste.
Right.
It's kind of nice to think of something that is a little bit more outside of the box and maybe something that's from a place that's local or a gift that is going to be a little bit more everlasting than something that's ephemeral.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that said, if you are looking for a gift, there's a really cool place that we're going to tell you about for our recommendation for the week.
Our recommendation for the week is Sunkissed Pinay. Sunkissed Pinay is a Filipino exclusive jewelry line founded by Maria. They are known for their Filipino pride jewelry, especially their Baybayin collection and Araw collection. I have two pieces specifically from this company, and speaking of everlasting, they've really been lasting these couple years.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn more about Sunkissed Panay through the website at sunkissedpanay.com. That's Sunkissed, Pinay.com, and you can find them on Instagram at sunkissed_Pinay.
Yep, and that's going to be our recommendation for the week. Okay, so first read of The Holiday Switch by Tiff Marcello. In our first read, we read pages 1 through 92, which were chapters 1 through 9. We haven't touched this book yet, so there was no pre information, but at least within this first read, we get a lot of detailing of characters.
Mhm. We're first introduced to our main character, who is Lila Santos. Lila, like myself, is the eldest child, but she's an eldest child of four siblings. In addition, we find out pretty quickly that she has a secret blog called Tinsel and Tropes. In Tinsel and Tropes, she reads, like us, she reads books, but specifically holiday books, where she rates, reviews, and describes what's happening in the books. Other than her secret blog, she works at Bookworm Inn and keeps the inn's library where she finds a lot of her holiday books.
Yep. And her goal with everything is to eventually make it to Syracuse. So she's working at this bookstore so that she can make money to pay tuition and not have to burden her parents.
Right.
Her ideal goal is to make enough money to even give back to her siblings so that ideally her parents don't have to pay for them as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the character of Lila. This is the person that we're following. As far as we can see, we're going to see everything pretty much through Lila's eyes.
Yes. In terms of her specific characteristics, though, what do you notice about Lila's character?
She seems very giving, very kind, and a tad bit neurotic.
Mm, I was also going to say that she's very patient, considering who she has to deal with at work.
Mm-hmm. But she definitely gives off the vibes of a teenager still.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
she's put into this role where she has to be the eldest child, and the role of the eldest child that is the caregiver for the younger siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So we see a person that's grown up probably faster than other kids her age.
Yeah.
The way that she talks to her siblings is very much on the patient side.
Mm-hmm.
And giving us a first person perspective still helps us see the ideas of what's going through her head, which isn't just, oh, I'm going to go do this nice thing for my sister, but my sister's annoying and I have to do this nice thing for her because I don't want her to feel bad or I don't
Yeah.
want my parents to get angry and things like that.
For sure. I see myself in Lila in that I'm the eldest child and I'm the ate to my siblings. And I definitely see the times where she has to be a little bit more giving to her younger siblings. Like they're trying to get her attention, but she parses out her answers succinctly in order for each person to get enough of her.
Yeah, so that's going to be Lila, but our story's filled with so many more characters brought into this realm.
Mm-hmm.
So Lila has her close friends, which are Carmela Ferreira and Casey Chang. They are both friends that are attached either through work or school, but seem like key components in what make her social life.
I think they're both from the same high school.
Yeah. We also get to see her family, which is her mom and dad. She has a sister who's 14 years old named Irene, and then she has twin brothers who are 10 years old named Grant and Graham.
Mm-hmm.
And then we enter the world that we seem to spend the most time in, and that's the world of the bookstore. And the owner of that bookstore is Miss Velasco.
I think it's more of a gift shop rather than a bookstore because it's a gift shop with a library attached to it.
And even on top of that, I take that back. It's an inn.
Yeah.
And it's a really famous inn in this story
Mm-hmm.
because there was a holiday film shot within it.
Right. Called Holiday by the Lake.
Right. So, yeah, Miss Velasco is the owner of this Bookworm Inn.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of took this world from the movie and made it so that this place became a destination for tourists.
Yeah.
And it's been very successful.
Yeah. Not only did she make it a destination inn, but she also seems to know what to do with the marketing.
Right. She is very succinct. She's very particular.
Mm-hmm.
She likes things done her way, including checklists and things being managed very well.
Right. And not only managed very well, but in a precise place, even though other people have opinions, like Lila would offer her ideas, Miss Velasco is more strict on where she wants the things to be placed.
Mhm. Now, with Miss Velasco comes a character that we're not quite sure about yet.
Mm-hmm. And she's kind of his auntie.
Right.
Well, not kind of. She is his auntie.
Yep. And his name's Teddy Rivera. So, Teddy is from Syracuse. He's here during his holiday vacation, but we're not sure why.
Mm-hmm.
That somewhat remains a mystery.
Yes.
But what we do know is that Miss Velasco has become burdened with his presence in a way because she's meant to give him a job. She's probably been asked to take care of him during this time.
Mm-hmm.
And he, from the perspective of Lila at least, he doesn't seem like a great worker. He doesn't seem like he wants to be there. He plays that aloof, dark, mysterious character.
Right. Very much, I don't know. Like, the character that came to mind was Edward Cullen,
Mm,
except Filipino.
I saw it more like one of the characters from Gossip Girls or something.
Mm.
A brooding person, but not like sad and moody, I guess.
I guess you can say, for those who have read Gossip Girl, he is kind of like a Nate.
Sure. I have not read it. I've
Fair.
only seen the scenes around it.
That's fair.
And at least from my vision of how this world is, it's very much Gossip Girly.
Yes. So, again, for those readers who know Gossip Girl and have read the books, he's kind of Nate, but again, Filipino.
Mm-hmm. So we learn a little bit about him. There's a lot of mystery behind how he carries himself,
Mm-hmm.
but also the fact that he has a secret hobby of rock climbing.
Yeah. I wonder if he keeps it a secret because Miss Velasco doesn't want him doing dangerous things.
I don't know. It seems deeper than that. It
Mm,
seems like that may be a cause of the reason why he's in this town of Holly.
fair. But why would rock climbing get somebody in trouble?
Well, that's the question.
Right. But I mean, like, I'm trying to speculate here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have no idea. Maybe he broke some rules. Maybe he climbed a tower. Maybe, I don't
Mm,
know, he went on a trip that he wasn't supposed to.
mm,
But yeah, Teddy is a very unknown character up till this point.
right. Very mysterious. But besides the mysteriousness and his rock climbing, something that I recognized in Teddy is that he's also very contemplative. Like, he's not just brooding and smoldering, but he's actually thinking about, well, this might be a better way to run the cash register, or this might be a better way to put the bobbleheads.
Yeah, I mean, he's also going to Syracuse, which means he has a good head on his shoulders.
Mhm.
It's just whether he decides to use it or the way that he's deciding to use it, we're not really going to see from a neutral perspective. We're seeing it through Lila's viewpoint.
Right.
Another side that we get to see to him is when we get this whole phone switch mix up.
Yes.
Lila finds out that her phone, which should be in pristine condition, is suddenly not, only for us to find out that her phone was switched with Teddy's. And this is where we start to enter into the fog and the mysticism of who this Teddy character is. So we get these unknown text messages that are being sent to his friend groups. We have Lila following him to that rock climbing gym, which is how we find out that he rock climbs.
Yes.
And we also kind of find out something more on the positive side because when they do end up switching their phones back, we find out that he's very thoughtful and kind.
Mm-hmm. He ends up buying her breakfast when they switch phones.
He ends up buying her breakfast. He also, I guess, saw the note of things that she was supposed to do
Mm-hmm.
and gets her that very specific marshmallow from that place, which
Mm,
was one of the to-do lists on her planner.
right.
So there's definitely a personality trait in him that we haven't really uncovered quite fully.
But in my mind, is this thoughtfulness truly intrinsic, or is he just being thoughtful because he's trying to be manipulative?
I think with his original character being so clouded in mystery, I would definitely say that it's probably more genuine.
Hmm.
I think these are the character types that we tend to see in these reads where a person enters a small town and he's from a big city and looks so harmful and menacing and oh, we don't know what he's gonna do, and all of a sudden he likes flowers and teddy bears and loves going for long walks on the beach. I don't know. It just seems like this is that character that we're building up.
Gotcha. So footloose but Filipino.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely has to have a leather jacket, right? Like,
Right?
what is that character from the Sarah Echevara Smith book?
The boy with the bookstore?
Yeah, like him, a Filipino.
Yes.
So within this read, I mean, that's what we get. We get a lot of backstory. What we start to get to see is Lila's reasoning for why she's not a part of the social media world as much.
Mm,
She hides this blog from her parents because of her parents being fearful of how much information they share on the interwebs.
yes.
And this all stems from this really terrible event that happened to her father's business where a tree fell on it. But beyond that, that event triggered the town to start to turn on Lila's family.
Yeah, and in addition to turning on them, they eventually doxed her family, which made her parents quite protective of them.
Yeah, it also seemed like without anything being said, there seemed to be a vibe of racism within this.
Mm,
Because what we learn when Teddy shows up is that there aren't a whole lot of Filipino people in this town.
mm-hmm,
And a town like Holly, a small town in America, usually has a pretty strong white American presence.
mm-hmm,
And based off of the reactions that people gave for her father needing money and, oh, he's just running a scam, he's trying to take this money from us, he's too lazy to work, these are all stereotypes and negative feelings people give against people of minority. And more specifically, something that we see revolving around a lot of brown people.
right.
So I think that even though the plot point might have been so small of why these people might have turned on the Santos family, I do think there's a strong sense that racism played a part in this.
I can see that.
This does then build on why everything is the way that it is, though. With that struggle that they had, we talked about the Christmas gifts. We also see that Lila was never short of love. Her parents supported her, her family supported each other. They were able to get through the hardest times.
Mm-hmm.
It also shows where Lila got her hard work and ethic from. We also see the family working so hard to help motivate each other and give everything they can as a single unit.
Right, and to stay connected to each other beyond just being a unit, but also being a family together.
Yeah. How did you like this first read so far and the backstories that came along with it?
I liked it. I like that there was so much backstory, especially for the other characters where we're not going to see too much about them, like Carmela and Casey. We see them as parts of her life, but we don't see too much about their actual selves. So having so much of this backstory makes it so that they're not flat.
Yeah, and this is a read that we haven't had in a while where it is almost purely first person narrative.
Hmm.
We are seeing the story unfold from Lila's eyes, and genuinely for me, it very much has a Gossip Girl kind of vibe to it. It's a person in this town who is a teenager trying to manage the drama around her.
Totally. And on top of it being a first person narrative, it's only one point of view.
Yeah, rather than changing between chapters.
Exactly. So, with all the family things that was brought up in this story, I thought that was something that's interesting was that there wasn't a Lola or a Lolo in this book.
Hmm.
I think because, especially with immigrant families, there's usually a grandma or grandfather who comes with them. But in this story, it's just a nuclear family.
Hmm. And, we don't know if that's going to be the case. We haven't really gotten through the section that it actually hits Christmas yet.
Hmm,
So maybe the grandparents live outside of the home,
maybe.
but we won't know that until we get into our second and third reads. So for our second read, we're going to be reading.
Pages 93 through 176, and that'll be chapters 10 through 17.
Yep. And for anyone that is starting to get into this book with us, if you have any questions or thoughts of your own that you'd like to share, how can people get in touch with us?
Y'all can email us at asianbookclubpod@gmail.com or join the conversation on Instagram at asianbookclubpod.
Yep. And we also have our website, which is asianbookclubpod.com, where you can find our bookshop, where we have books that we've read in the past, books that we recommend, and books that we plan to read in the future.
And a great way to support us is to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast.
Otherwise, make sure to be happy, be healthy, and read a book.
Ingat!
Bye.
Bye!